I'd like to call this meeting to order. It's the City of Palm Coast City Council Business Meeting. It is Tuesday, October 2nd, 2018. It is 6 p.m. Please join me in the Pledge Allegiance to the flag. Roll call, please.
Mayor Holland?
Here.
Vice Mayor Cupp? Here. Councilmember Clufus?
Present.
Councilmember Lyon?
Here.
Councilmember Shipley? Here. Mayor, all members are present.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll now open up to public participation. Any member of the public wish to make public comment on items not on the agenda, you have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes will begin.
My name is Dottie Benton. I own Cooper, and I'm Cooper's mother. And when Port Orange declared Cooper dangerous, he was not in Port Orange. He was in Flagler County. And the city council has kept him in a shelter for 8 months, and he has a ranch to go to. We filed a settlement agreement with Mr. Reichman's office in August, showing a $3.1 million insurance policy that Mr. Pimenthal has covering his dogs. He would also give an indemnification agreement to the city to indemnify you of any liability. Mr. Reichman's Jennifer Nix called Mr. Pimenthal and asked for a picture of the kennels, a picture of the lock, and a picture of the ranch, which he sent to her. Now, Cooper's third bite, I don't know if any of you have read about kennel rage, but he's let out 1 hour a day. He's kept in his kennel for 23 hours with no interaction with other animals. I go every day, but I have to sit outside his kennel to play with him, and there's really no contact. I have had a call from Channel 6 and Channel 13, and I will be meeting with them one day next week. Mr. Pimenthal also, from the ranch, has pulled 4 dangerous bite history Rottweilers from 4 different counties that he has had no incidents with. So, and then your animal control officer, Evil Rodriguez, has filed a 3rd-degree felony charge against me when I have not had custody of my dog for 8 months. So I just asked this council to reconsider. I also want to say we have men in the audience that are running for office. Dennis McDonald is running for County Commissioner, District 2. He has worked 5 months on Cooper. We have Jack Howell, he's running for a council seat. He has also worked for Cooper. And I would like for everybody in this room, before you leave that's for Cooper, to meet these men, because they will make a change. And we have other council members that's coming up for re-election in 2 years. Thank you very much.
We said it last time, this is a public hearing. There is no applause at our public hearings. If you cannot comply with that, we will remove you from these chambers. I will not ask again. I've made it very clear last time. It's part of our rules and procedures and policies. Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Renee DiVincenzo, and I am just following up on Ms. Benton that I'm finding it alarming to witness the animal cruelty that has been placed on Cooper by the City of Palm Coast, having Cooper locked up 23 hours a day with no physical contact with his owner. The third incident that previously had happened is on the fault of the City of Palm Coast. Research shows an adult dog can be crated for as long as 8 hours, on occasion only, but daily crating of the length of can compromise the dog's mental and physical well-being. So we do need to ask, is this why the third incident happened with Cooper? Mr. Clufus, you have corresponded with me in 2 emails. The first email was 3 dog bites. Your second email to me was, imagine what would happen if an elected official were telling their staff to violate the law. Mr. Clufus, your biggest mistake was to correspond with me. and telling me why Cooper needs to be destroyed when your own family, your in-law's dog, who was not leashed, nor got out of his collar, was loose, attacking Mr. Gamble as he walked his dog, mauling his dog as they walked on the street, causing the stress of the attack to give Mr. Gamble a heart attack and die 3 days later. And your in-law's dog only received 10 days quarantine. Meanwhile, Cooper is going to be destroyed for protecting his family. What is your excuse with your family's dog? As an elected official, this is a conflict of interest. And Mr. Kloufis, you should not be stating your opinion, nor be involved in Cooper's decision to be destroyed. Due to your actions of this conflict of interest, Mr. Kloufis, I need to ask, and maybe some of the City of Palm Coast needs to ask, should we be asking for your resignation due to this situation? Thank you.
I am not going to do this every single time. I'm going to ask you respectfully. Do not applause after public comment. Again. Next speaker, please.
My name is Phyllis Kramer. I live in Flagler County, and I understand what a difficult position this has put all of us in, but particularly Cooper and his owners. So tonight, I'm just imploring everyone to try to look beyond what isn't possible and look to what we can do to resolve the situation in a humane manner, because I don't think that's been done. I mean, the dog has been locked up for 8 months. So either he should have been euthanized then, if you found cause to do that then, or he needs to be released to the ranch now, because it seems like that's a pretty reasonable solution to the problem for everyone, especially since Palm Coast will not be held responsible once he gets to the ranch. And if there are any other guarantees that you need or want legally, I don't know why the owner wouldn't give that to you, or the ranch wouldn't give that to you. So I'm just imploring you tonight, because there are a lot of different people here in support of Cooper, who really want you to do the humane thing as quickly as you possibly can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Jack Howell, Palm Coast. You know, an attorney here with the city is an advisor. That's the primary function, not an elected official. Sometimes the advice you get from an attorney is good, and sometimes it's bad. You have to make the decision as city commissioners what the right call is. Now, in my Marine Corps career, several times I presided as a judge, per se, under an Article 32 investigation, where I had the government's case and the defendant's case. And my position was to observe and find out what really happened and to look at the probable cause. But one thing that we had was called mitigation and extenuation, which allowed a judge to have a little bit more discretion. And sometimes you have to do that, despite what the law may say directly. And then, of course, our city attorney is quite an orator, because I remember during the charter review, there was a discussion on 2 words, shall and will. And he was able to do some quick dancing and maneuvering to use the 2 words as he felt they should be. Where shall means, well, maybe, wasn't definite. Well, will means, yeah, it is. And so I would tell you that tonight, the city attorney, when he has his opportunity to speak, should go back to that meeting in the spring where he was orating the shall and will and come up with the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
John Brady, City of Palm Coast. Three attorneys sit up on that dais. This is an administrative hearing. If you do not defend, the petitioner is granted. I don't understand why you can just say, we are not going to fight the petitioner. And end of story.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Oops.
Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. First, I want to ask a question. We send our tax money to the city and we send it to the county. What actually does the county do for us as a city? We have our own fire department. We have our own police that costs us a fortune that we shouldn't have in the first place. And so I'm just wondering, I ask them what they do for us, and I get the same answer, It's a dance. If Fred Astaire was still alive, right, he would laugh. But that's why I want to know, what do we pay for with the county? I know, it's not much considering, but I'm just curious to know. But now my second thing is, we're going to vote on the city charter, and we're voting on, like the judge says, on two words, shall and, but we're not really changing the charter. We're eliminating the boundaries which should have been never put in the first place. But we're not really changing the charter to what the people want. It's not that will or shall. It's, do we extend time for the council, or do we eliminate them, or that's what, I was at those city meetings. Everybody wanted something different, and we didn't get anything. So the meetings, including these meetings, are useless.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Seeing none, I'll close public comment. Mr. Reichman, I would ask you to respond to the dialogue about Cooper, please.
Sure. There were a couple of points made. Let me address those first and then make more of a general statement. The statement was made that the current status, where we are right now in the process, is an administrative hearing. And where the matter is right now is an appeal, and it's an appeal before a judge. That's where the law requires this process. It's where the state legislature has said that this process stands at this time. This council, notwithstanding what all of you have asked, this council, under the law, does not have the authority or the power to tell the judge, or in this particular case, before the judge, the special magistrate, what to do. This council does not have a role by law in this process.
Please.
You all have asserted and claimed that this council has made Cooper the victim. Law declares that the individuals that Cooper has bitten and inflicted serious injuries are the victims. And I would ask the city clerk at this time to make sure that we're clear about what we're talking about when we're talking about the effects of what has happened in this case. Because there are consequences, there are impacts of this. This is not just where an animal growled. This is where an animal attacked on 3 separate occasions and inflicted what the law clearly states are serious injuries.
One more time, and you'll be removed from these chambers. One more time.
Two separate independent magistrates at hearings where due process was afforded reached the conclusion that under Florida law, this dog be deemed a dangerous dog. And under Florida law, there is only one result that is allowed, and that is exactly what is happening. And that is what is going before the judge on appeal. Again,
Mark.
I would respectfully suggest,
Look, don't put me in the spot. The mayor's asked you 2 or 3 times. The next person that talks, I'm gonna ask you to leave. If you don't abide by my law and my decision, I'm gonna have to arrest you for disruption of the court or our public service. So please, let the man speak. You guys have a chance to speak, and don't put me in that spot. Okay? Is that fair enough?
Thank you.
finally, this is an unfortunate situation. Everyone in this room agrees to that. This council was put into this situation. All of you are passionate. We recognize and respect that passion. Your passion should be directed against what can be productive. What can be productive and come out of this unfortunate incident is to go to your legislators and ask them to take into consideration some other consequence other than what the law currently provides. You are asking this council to violate the charter and their oath of office by asking and demanding that they ignore the facts and disregard, if not violate, the law. They took an oath of office. They have to follow that. The law is clear. The facts are undisputed. 2 hearing officers concluded that. The judge can reach a different conclusion, but this council cannot. I would respectfully submit to you that if you are upset about this situation, as you obviously are, then address your concerns to the law which was passed by Tallahassee, the legislature. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Somebody, and I apologize for not remembering the name, but someone made a comment about let's focus on what we can do, not what we can't do. I'm afraid Mr. Reichman has it correct. We can't change the decision of the hearing officer. We can't tell the judge what decision to make. An allegation was made that the dog was kept under poor conditions at the Humane Society. Unfortunately, no one is here from the Humane Society to address that. But if that is something, we perhaps could have some influence on the conditions under which the dog is there. So I'd ask that maybe we look into what conditions, because I've heard conflicting stories about how much time and exercise the dog gets, certainly more than is presented tonight. And I think our Humane Society does an excellent job, and if there's an issue there, that is something we can do about in the future. The law requires that the dog be kept in quarantine until the court decides. So that doesn't mean that conditions in quarantine can't be as humane as possible. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Your comments on this issue? I would just say in closing, I mean, this has been a very, very sad issue and sensitive issue. You know, if I could do anything to revisit history and change the state law, I would. And I would encourage our state legislators to recognize that this has put this community in a very vicarious and sad situation. And it's sad all around. It's sad for those that were injured. It was sad for the family, and it's sad for our community as a whole. So there is no good answer here other than we are hopeful that the judge will allow Cooper to spend his time in this ranch. And I think everyone on this council has suggested that that would be the outcome they'd like to see in this process. What we tried to explain tonight is the fact that We have not taken a vote as a council. This has never come to us for a vote to put Cooper down. This was decided by a state law that was decided after the animal was deemed dangerous. An appeal process has taken place. We are allowing the appeal process to take place. We do not have any authority over the judicial system in Flagler County. We do not have authority over when the judge decides this decision. We have made it very clear as a council what our wishes are, and I can state very clearly that, you know, our hope is that the judge will find it in its wisdom to allow Cooper to go to the ranch that was found. In the meantime, I would really encourage you to take your energy and frankly put it towards both Representative Renner and Senator Hudson, who do have the authority and power to change this law, who have the right to also hear your story and hear the pain that has caused many, and it's caused us pain as well. It's not been pleasant. And so that's what I would encourage everyone to do. You know, again, we cannot change state law. That is above the City of Palm Coast law, and we are doing everything in our power. To that point, I think it's incumbent on us to ensure, as Councilmember Lyon has suggested, that we reach out to the Humane Society and address the issues brought forth this evening. And I will address the second comment about, Jack, to your question about what does the county do for us. I can tell you that, you know, you as a taxpayer for county services, we do not have our own police department. We contract with the Sheriff's Department. That is under the purview of the County Commission. The tax collector, the property appraiser, the supervisor of elections, the clerk of court that runs the judicial system, and it's also responsible for the recording of all meetings of the County Commission, and many other things that the county is responsible for, including the jail, the other facilities under their oversight. They do actually are responsible for portions of unincorporated county. We are obviously the major population of the City of Palm Coast here geographically, but the county does have a role and responsibility that they are responsible for that the taxpayers pay into. Okay, we will now move to agenda item number 1, which are approval of the minutes of the City Council. We're looking for approval for September 18, 2018, business meeting, September 19, 2018, special business meeting, budget, September 25th, 2018, workshop.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Okay, agenda item number 2 is a proclamation for Fire Prevention Week. Councilmember Clufus will be presenting. I would ask everyone receiving to please come up to the podium.
The City of Palm Coast is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living and visiting Palm Coast. And whereas U.S. fire departments responded to 365,500 home fires in 2015, resulting in 2,560 civilian deaths, according to the National Fire Protection Association. And whereas newer homes are built with lightweight materials that burn faster than older constructions, and many of today's products and furnishings produce toxic gases and smoke when burned, making it impossible to see and breathe within minutes. And whereas these conditions contribute to a much smaller window of time for people to escape safely, with people having as little as 1 to 2 minutes to escape from the time the smoke alarm sounds. And whereas a home fire escape provides the skill set and know-how to quickly and safely escape a home fire situation and should be developed by all members of the household. And whereas a home fire escape plan includes 2 exits from every room in the home, a path to the outside from each exit, smoke alarms in all required locations, and a meeting place outside where everyone in the home will meet upon exiting. And whereas practicing a home fire escape plan twice a year ensures that everyone in the household knows what to do in a real fire situation. Whereas the Palm Coast Fire Department is dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and protection education. And whereas Palm Coast residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2018 Fire Prevention Week theme, Look, Listen, Learn, Be Aware, Fire Can Happen Anywhere, effectively serves to remind us that we need to take personal steps to increase safety from fire. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Mayor and the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, October 7th through October 13th, 2018, as Fire Prevention Week. And throughout this community, and urge all of the people of Palm Coast to find and develop a home fire escape plan with all members of their household, practice it twice a year, and to participate in many public safety activities as possible, including the Palm Coast Fire Department Fire Prevention Week 2018, signed this second day of 2018, October 2nd, City of Palm Coast, Florida, Mayor Melissa Holland.
Chief Forte.
Mr. Falgout, Mayor, Council, before I turn this over to Eric Robinson, who's our public education lead on our department, there's a steep history in our organization as to how long the fire prevention program actually started. Back in the mid-'80s, it started with Learn Not to Burn, which is a program that was put out by the National Fire Academy. Came up with some catchy phrases like stop, drop, and roll, change your batteries, change your smoke detector. And the Learn Not to Burn program was actually the inception of our program years ago. Since that time, we've aggressively gone after several areas of concern that our community should have been looking at. We've started a juvenile fire setter program back in the early 90s that went away and then reinvigorated back again in 2011. This is a program that basically takes at-risk use and they give them a second option if they are caught lighting fires. They go through a diversionary program if they meet the criteria, which is not having a felony. And it's actually a civil citation that they're given a second chance, and then they get turned over to Eric Robinson and his crew, and they work with the child one-on-one. Child car seat installation, every station, every fire officer in the department is certified as a child car seat install tech, that anybody can go and check their car seats. We do extensive amount of work in the community with installing the proper car seats and making sure that they're the right way. And there's so many things that we do on a daily basis that is very acknowledgeable. I'd like to turn it over to Eric Robinson, who is our team leader for the fire prevention program. He's got a couple of words to say, and he'll close it out.
Mr. Falgout, Mayor Holland, members of council, on behalf of Chief Forte and the members of the Palm Coast Fire Department, I am happy to accept this proclamation for Fire Prevention Week. During the month of October, the fire prevention team plans to educate over 7,000 Flagler County students at all the area elementary schools. In 1925, President Calvin Coolidge proclaimed Fire Prevention Week a national observance, making it the longest running public health observance in our country. During Fire Prevention Week, children, adults, and teachers learn how to stay safe in case of a fire. Firefighters provide life-saving public education in an effort to drastically decrease casualties caused by fires. Fire Prevention Week is observed each year during the week of October 9th in commemoration of the Great Chicago Fire, which began on October 8th, 1871, and caused devastating damage. This horrific conflagration killed more than 250 people, left 100,000 homeless, and destroyed more than 17,400 structures and burned more than 2,000 acres of land. The 2018 Fire Prevention Week theme, Look, Listen, Learn, Be Aware, Fire Can Happen Anywhere, effectively serves to remind us that we need to take personal steps to increase our safety from fire. While October is primarily focused on fire prevention, we are happy to report that the Palm Coast Fire Department makes fire prevention their priority every day of the year. Throughout the year, we stress the importance of fire prevention with public speaking engagements, the use of our safety trailer, and fire extinguisher training. Our fire prevention team works throughout the year to ensure that we educate our community on the importance of safe fire prevention practices. Once again, on behalf of Chief Forte and the fire prevention team and the rest of the members of the Palm Coast Fire Department, I would like to thank you for proclaiming next week as 2018 Fire Prevention Week. Thank you.
Have a great night. Thank you. Okay, agenda item number 3 is a presentation of awards for the Senior Games Parade of Champions.
Got an entourage tonight. So, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Mr. Falgout, last month we came to you guys with a proclamation for the start of the Senior Games. As you know, Palm Coast has a storied history with athletics being one of the foundations that it was founded on. One of our Senior Games is actually one of the qualifiers for the state Senior Games. This year we had 261 participants, and 60% of those participants are from Flagler County. Of those sports that we had both sanctioned and non-sanctioned sports, and a lot of the people that you see before you have qualified for the state games that are happening December 1st through December 9th at Clearwater. So we had 131 participants in pickleball, 43 in tennis, and we actually had an increase from last year. And the reason being is the stuff that we're putting on. We actually won 2 awards that was presented by the state Senior Games to us. One of it was for the marketing material that we had, which you can see the shirts and the medals and stuff, which was brought to you by our greatest person ever, Brittany McDermott. So, yeah. So we had 165 individuals that qualified from our Senior Games, and 85 of those individuals was from Flagler County. It's a testament to the Parks and Recreation Department. I appreciate everyone that had their hand in this, and then also the people that participated. Agnes, you can go on and speak. It's about them.
Okay, thank you. I'm Agnes Lightfoot, and I happen to be the president of Friends of Tennis for the tennis facility, and we had so much excitement and interest in the Senior Games. That's why so many people turned out. And other counties as well came here, but we beat them. Anyway. And our pickleball, what an amazing turnout. So thank you for doing this, and let's continue next year.
Al Hurley. Again, I want to thank the Park and Recreation for putting on the Senior Games. I participated in it last year and had a wonderful time. And again, this year I had another wonderful time. Again, I'd like to thank Brandon and his staff who put on a fantastic job. These are the people that you really don't see actually coming in here, but they really worked in all these different types of events. And also, I'd like to put in a good word for your marketing department, which is Kathy Collins, who did the video, And also Nicole Brown Rigg, she's an intern in the marketing department now. She's in college now. Again, I'd just like to mention that. And again, thank the city of Palm Coast for putting on this event. Thank you.
Hi, we're here for golf. We play golf, and I just want to tell you, you've got a great golf course. The superintendent's taken a great deal of pride in that kind of thing. It's the best I've ever seen. When I started maybe 6 years ago, it was not good. We were playing off of dirt. Now we have nice grass to hit off of. It's something to be proud of. And people come here from many places. We have lots of people coming from, we're having Northeast seniors here Monday, and we'll have maybe 85 people from all over North Florida, and they're enjoying coming back and playing at Palm Harbor because it's so much nicer. I didn't intend to speak, that's why I'm stuttering around, but it's come a long way, and it's a great golf course now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, City Hall, everybody. And Palm Coast golf course, very, very nice. I play almost, let me see, 4 years. I win women's champions. I have 5 medals. Thank you very much.
All right, so we'll go in front for a picture, and then afterwards we have some cake and refreshments for you guys in the back as well.
All right, so we're going to try to center ourselves with this behind us, and we're going to have to make a few rows.
Got your ordinance reading voice on?
Okay, now everybody, if you could just squish together like you like each other. Try to see if your face can see me, Alex Boyer. Okay, I'm going to take it again with a camera and a phone. So 1, 2, 3, smiling. 1, 2, 3, and we'll do one more. The observer needs it tonight. Okay, perfect. 1, 2, 3. I'll do a couple. 1, 2, 3. And again, 1, 2, 3. Congratulations,
Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 4, which is an ordinance. Mr. Reichman.
Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, amending Unified Land Development Code, Section 4.09, drive-through facilities by relocating it to Chapter 5, Transportation, Connectivity, Access, and Parking, amending Chapter 5, Transportation, Connectivity, Access, and Parking, and amending Section 4.02, glossary, to clarify intent and to reflect current development trends, providing for severability codification, providing for conflicts, and providing for an effective date.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Ray Tyner, Planning Manager, is going to cover. This is the second reading of this ordinance. So there was a good discussion at your first reading, and so staff went back and, as requested by City Council, looked at some of the changes. And so Ray's presentation is only going to cover the portions that were tweaked based on your discussion last time.
Hello.
Yeah, we also workshopped this chapter and went through planning board, and we came up with one discussion, if you recall, the last meeting, and that was with parking as it relates to duplex zone property for duplexes. As you recall, our current code requires a 2-car garage for any duplex that's over 1,200 square feet, and the proposal is to allow for a duplex with 1,300 square feet to have a 1-car garage. We had a lot of discussion when it came to parking. We went back and we went and drafted the code per direction from City Council, that if they were going to have a 1,300 square foot duplex with a one-car garage, that we would require parking spaces for two vehicles instead of one. So in our revision, we stipulate that there would be a minimum of 16 square feet wide width of a parking area for a one-car garage with a maximum of 20. We did discuss this with the Home Builders Association representation, and they had a meeting and they were fine with having a two spaces for a duplex with a one-car garage. Also, we had some discussion on the minimum 25% of landscape. We had somewhat of discussion. We made some clarifications in the code that it's very clear that you have to have a minimum of 25% landscape in the front yard. One thing we did too that was interesting is we went out and we looked at real-life permits, permits that were issued by the City of Palm Coast, and wanted to kind of give you a visual of what was going on. This is an older duplex, and this is an example of a 10.5 foot wide per garage space, total of 21 feet. This would not meet the code as proposed. As you can see in the picture, there's not enough room for, two cars to park in that space, and it was the older model. One thing we also found is that some of the newer duplexes that some of our home builders are doing with the one-car garage existing, that's 1,200 feet or less, they're already accommodating for two spaces on the most part. So I think that's why a lot of the home builders were okay with the proposed change, because they're doing it now with the 1,200 square foot. This one is an example of that would not meet our code. There's too much pervious in the front. It doesn't meet our 40-foot wide minimum, 20 per parking space. And you can see, and it's real hard to get a real picture because you're looking head on because you want to get the whole parking area. But this would not meet our code. The parking driveway is too wide. So it's 46 feet wide. The max would be 20 per garage space, would equal 40. So that would be limited for that space. This is a good example of a newer product that that would meet our code. This is 36 feet total, 18 per garage, and you can see where you do have enough room for two cars to park and two cars also in back, but that would accommodate two cars per garage. 40 feet wide the width, and not any larger than 40 feet. Like the second slide that I showed you was larger. It's really unnecessary because to get two cars to park, you need 16 feet minimum. The 20 feet would give somebody, if they're coming out of their car door, to be able to step on concrete. So we think this proposal meets the trying to accommodate parking and also keeping some green space as well. As you can see in this picture, we do have, like I said, we have a head-on picture, but you can see the green space here and the green space here. The picture really doesn't capture all of that. So city staff is recommending approval of the change, and I'm here to take any questions that you may have.
Council, any questions or discussion on this item?
I have one. The house, the first one you showed on Emerson, so that would be grandfathered in. If they wanted to add to the size of it, would they be able to now with the new ordinance?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they would.
Any other council comments? Okay, open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to make comment on agenda item number 4, please do so at this time. See no one, I'll close public comment. I'll take it back to this council, entertain a motion.
Move approval?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 5 is an ordinance. Mr. Reichman.
Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, annexing by voluntary petition property located contiguous to the City of Palm Coast in accordance with the voluntary annexation provisions of Section 171.044 Florida statutes. This redefines the boundaries of the City of Palm Coast to include a portion of the property owned by BIA Development, LLC, located generally 1,000 feet west of Colbert Lane and north of State Road 100, generally consisting of approximately 22.7 acres more or less, as more particularly described in the ordinance. This ordinance provides for findings, redefines the corporate limits of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, provides for the taking of administrative action for severability, non-codification, and an effective date.
Good evening once again. This is a second reading of an annexation, Mayor and Council. There's no further information to provide from first reading. The location map is attached. It's 22.7 acres on State Road 100, just west of Colbert Lane. It basically closes off an enclave in the city, so it's ready for final action, Mayor.
Okay. Council, any discussion or comments? Open up to the public. Any member of the public wish to make public comment on agenda item number 5, please do so at this time. Seeing no one, I'll close public comment, take it back to this council, entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Agenda item number 6 is an ordinance.
Mayor, this is the first reading of a quasi-judicial matter. The title is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Palm Coast, Florida, providing for the amendment of the official zoning map as established in Section 2.06 of the City of Palm Coast Unified Land Development Code. This ordinance amends the official zoning map for approximately 4.79 acres, more or less, that this subject tract. It's generally located east of Seminole Woods Boulevard, west of Pinnacles Drive, and south of State Road 100, and it's described in the Exhibit A attached to the ordinance. The rezoning from limited office, or OFC1, to general commercial, or COM2, zoning district, providing for conflicts, severability, non-codification, providing for effective date. Mayor, as I indicated previously, this is quasi-judicial, so if any of you all have had ex parte communications prior to tonight, those should be disclosed on the record.
Council, any member have any disclosures at this time?
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Mayor and Council, this is the first reading of a rezoning in a commercial corridor. It was recommended approval 7-0 by the Planning and Land Development Regulation Board, and Ida will give you the details of this request.
Good evening. This is application 3727. It's a rezoning request. In terms of the location, you can see that it's at the southeastern corner of State Road 100 and Seminole Woods Boulevard, south of the Town Center Master Plan Development, our CRA, and just slightly west of the hospital. The future land use for this area and the corridor is mixed use. The existing zoning, as noted, is limited office, Office 1. I'd like to point out that this is part of the Pinnacles subdivision. There's a cluster of office buildings largely built out in this vicinity that were approved together many years ago. And also, notably, the property remains vacant. The proposed zoning is commercial 2. The approval of commercial 2 would allow for additional uses to be considered for the property. It also would allow for the possibility of a restaurant use, which would likely be very complementary to the existing office uses in the vicinity. And again, the Pinnacles is largely built out as office already. Also like to point out that there's a major FP&L easement at the corner of that property. So any development would really be oriented toward the center and easternmost portion of the property. There's a 300-foot wide easement at the corner. In terms of the site development requirements, they're largely the same for office or commercial. Would have a 20,000 square foot site minimum as opposed to a 15,000, so in one sense that's more stringent. The impervious coverage limitation would be the same, 70%. The building height allowable would be more, and the FAR would be the equivalent as Office 1. There was a neighborhood information meeting held for this request. One person attended, and I am told that they were supportive and it was largely informational. Therefore, our staff analysis is that the proposed commercial 2 zoning on State Road 100 and mixed-use corridor and arterial is appropriate. Future development, any future development on this site would require technical site plan review. Project is an infill project, so services and facilities are nearby and available. Mixed use, future land use encourages diverse uses and higher uses. And any development, again, on site would have to comply with our land development code, comprehensive plan, all permitting requirements, et cetera. Therefore, the planning staff and the Planning Land Development Regulation Board recommend that the City Council approve the rezoning of 4.79 acres from limited office, Office 1, to Commercial 2, General Commercial, as presented in application number 3727. And I'm available, and Mr. Faulkner, the agent for the applicant, is available should you have questions.
Yes, go ahead.
The 300-foot FPL easement, does that have to do with the equipment that they have on the opposite side of the road?
I think it's a corridor.
Gotcha, yeah. So that's understandable. That's why it's so wide.
Yeah, it's a north-south corridor.
Okay, understood.
Council, any questions or comments at this time?
Yes, I just first thing that struck me about this is that wasn't there a discussion before about not wanting to make alterations for less than 5-acre lots? That was something that came up at a prior meeting. I personally think that a restaurant would be a great facility to have there, but so my second question is there any guarantee that's going to be, what else could go into that place if we change the zoning?
Regarding the 5-acre minimum, I believe that came up with the multifamily zoning request, is that our comprehensive plan has a 5-acre preferred standard for multifamily. But in this instance, it's 20,000 square feet, so it easily makes that.
Okay, thank you for clearing that up. And then as to alternate uses?
In terms of the restaurant use?
I mean, I know the description said a restaurant was a very likely use, but, and I think it'd be a great location for one. I'm just wondering what alternatives could show up there, because, you know, the gas station across the street, I don't think we need another gas station on that corner. Is that an option?
Well, we'll get more impact fees if they do that this time, though.
And fuel fees, yes. Fuel tax.
Madam Chair, for the record, my name is Charlie Faulkner. Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't want to misrepresent anything. The difference between what is currently zoned and what we're planning to take it to, the zoning, the primary additional land uses are commercial 2 would allow restaurants as well as actually a small hotel. Those are about the only
some additional retail.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does
Okay.
answer my question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions or comments before I open up to the public? Any member of the public wish to make public comment on this agenda item, please do so at this time.
Go ahead, George.
Yes, George Mayo, Palm Coast. Good evening. Concerning what I'd had up on the board before, there was a public information meeting, I believe, was held at the Hilton. And she said, I believe only one person attended and there wasn't any problem. I thought the city went through that before when meetings were supposed to be held concerning neighbors, et cetera, that somebody from the city was going to attend so that we knew exactly what was said, what was carried on, and not depend on hearsay or what the developer said if there was any conflict or disagreements or anything else. So I would like to know if anybody from the city in their official capacity attended that.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. Now, he mentioned a restaurant and a small hotel. That's, that's not what's going, that's not really what's going to happen, because this says commercial. Commercial could be anything. It could be another gas station. It could be anything at all that's commercial, right? Including whatever, I don't know. But if you're going to say it's a hotel or a restaurant, let them be specific and say that's what it's going to be and nothing else. Just saying, well, it could be, or it could be this, or it could be that, it doesn't say anything. And council is going to do nothing about it. Like I said, we say it, we complain about it, and it goes in one ear, it goes out the other. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Seeing no one, I'll close public comment. To the first commenter, was anyone in attendance from our staff at that meeting?
No. Our code does not, it leaves it up to the applicant to arrange for the neighborhood meeting. We're happy to attend when we anticipate a neighborhood issue, but in this instance, being on a major corridor.
Mayor, we typically will go on some controversial items if you're multifamily. We have no problem of going to all of them. This one we knew is on a commercial corridor, away from residential. We didn't see any negative impacts for this or a whole lot of opposition or anything controversial about the rezoning. But in the future, we can attend all of them.
I think we requested that before for staff to attend that,
Yep.
just to bring
And I think
that.
there's actually, because of the Whiteview development that was
Right.
happening, I think that's the meeting that we had decided that actually someone from city council would attend those.
City council, city staff.
Yes,
City council.
We
had
never
talked
said
about.
city council.
Okay, well, I'm saying
Yeah.
city council now.
No, we absolutely will.
Yeah.
All of them then.
Yep, thank you. And as far as COM2, can you speak to?
Yes, ma'am. I do not have to go through the whole list of COM2, but, you're talking, restaurants, fast food, Dunkin' Donuts, beer, wine, liquor, cafeterias, coffee shops, performing art facility, a restaurant, fast food, sit-down restaurant, a variety of different retail. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities there. Don't know exactly what's going there, but it does open up rather than just limited to that office use. And being an office use there, it'd be nice to have on that hard corner to be able to have maybe a restaurant or something with all those offices and medical
But
facility, have
commercial
more
is,
of a mixed
commercial
use.
too is limited. It's not just anything in the
It's
entire
not just
universe
anything.
commercial.
That's
Okay.
correct.
Mayor, too. Our, since we've restructured our impact fees, I made that joke, but it is now a per pump impact fee that gets assessed. So it is I don't want to call it a deterrent, but we've revamped how we charge for impact fees to make those things less likely, even though that's just an auxiliary effect of our changes.
That would, yes. And as you recall, though, we also provided a grandfather or timeline provision in the code. I think it's, I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's February of when a building permit needs to be issued.
Yep.
Yep.
And Mayor, if I can just add, the best way to get a restaurant at that corner is for the public to eat at more restaurants here in Palm Coast. And they'll look at those numbers and it'll be a market-based decision on what goes on that corner. So this part of the rezoning process is just to designate what can go in that property. At a later date through site planning and further development steps, there'll be more information. But of course, if you shop local and shop at restaurants, chances are the people developing restaurants will see those numbers and see the need for another restaurant. So I agree, I would love to have a restaurant there.
Great comment. Okay, council, any other further discussion on this item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. We'll now move to the consent agenda. Any member of the public wish to make comments on 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, or 13, please do so at this time. Seeing no one, I'll close public comment, and I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Now move to public participation. Any member of the public wish to make public comment on items not on the agenda, please do so at this time. You've already spoken at the front of the meeting. We do not allow both times public speaking, so you have one chance to do that at the front or the end.
Evening, everyone. Dennis McDonald for the record. It didn't seem like you made some progress for all these weeks, but I think today maybe you made just a little bit. And I have to tell you that I appreciate the fact that you defined this council's position on Cooper. I've been to a few of the other meetings. I watched some of the other recordings of the meetings, and I didn't hear that loud and clear in the past. But tonight I heard it loud and clear what your position, every one of you, had to say about Cooper, and I think that goes a long way to maybe resolving this, and that's information that Judge will take into consideration, and I certainly hope he would. So a little bit of progress, something very positive. The thing I wanted to bring up, though, is that maybe you missed it, but did you notice that there's one of the things that was stated tonight, and I don't want to get specific to any one incident, was that the ability to declare a dog dangerous is rather discretionary. And we had a situation where, you know, we had a very serious incident. I remember when this whole thing happened with this gentleman died and his dog was mauled or whatever. And I think what people were trying to tell you is that you have you don't have an equitable position on that. And so I would ask you to take a look at that, because it ties back to one of the things that really upset me about the whole process, and that was on what you call the third bite. And that was when the dog warden, for lack of a better word, what happened was that they filed an action against Dottie, who didn't even have possession of the dog. And I have to tell you that from all the people that I've talked with in the public, that was like throwing gas on the fire. And I know that wasn't the intention of this council. So if there's some way that you could figure out a way for that not to happen in the future, that would be great. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Michelle Golias, and I've been in Palm Coast for 13 years. I've moved here from the Washington, D.C. area, and I just want to express my concern for Cooper. I've worked with rescues in the Arlington, Virginia area, Falls Church, Virginia, and McLean, Virginia. The goal of the United States now is, from what I could see, is to save animals, not kill them without any help. I just want to understand. I have done some research, and I'm asking you politely why some other counties in the state of Florida were able to release dogs to the sanctuary that have behavioral issues. I know we have an attorney here out of Orlando. He has to represent Palm Coast, but I'm asking nicely why we can't just consider, as other counties have done in the state of Florida, to bend the laws as they have and release this dog to the Plant City Sanctuary. We are paying high taxes for this attorney. I'm just asking you to have I was at the other meeting, and I could tell you all had a little bit more of a empathy tonight. I would like to see that more of Palm Coast Council and the mayor, because right now I'm ready to sell my house. Because there's a lot of people in Palm Coast have dogs, cats, animals. And Dottie is elderly, she's 72, and I know she can't get the dog back. But in today's society, Jesus, the Humane Society always tries to save an animal with behavioral issues. All I'm asking you is to have a little bit empathy and to really highly consider just, let's move on with our lives and let's let the dog go to the sanctuary. And let's just start back to business and make everybody happy in Palm Coast. That's all I'm asking. If you could highly consider, that would be very helpful, because I'm very upset. I had animals when I moved down here. I've rescued some animals. In Florida, there's a high volume of cats, stray animals on the street, and my heart is big for animals. But I think when there's an alternative measure, let's jump on it and let the dog go to a sanctuary. There's a $3 million insurance policy saying that Palm Coast will not be held accountable for it. I'm all for just having some empathy.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Patricia Ramos Rizzo, and I have some information here that I'm going to be sharing with everyone, just in case people aren't aware of this past incident. The Supreme Court has found the statute 767.12 unconstitutional because it provided animal control authorities unbridled discretion in its decision to categorize a dog as dangerous or not with. No guided authority to select the severity of consequences for a dog's actions. The Florida Supreme Court has emphasized in numerous cases unfettered authority granted to a government enforcement agency with no clear, specific legislative guidance is unconstitutional. This was written in regards to, in case you weren't familiar with, a dog bite in Sarasota County, and is exactly what has happened to this dog, Cooper. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Good evening again, George Mayo, Palm Coast. First of all, it's my first meeting here with our new manager, city manager. I wish you good health and good luck, as well as our new fire chief. One thing I saw on the news here, I have a picture. It's called the Free Library. This is in Philadelphia. And what it is, it's a mini kiosk, similar to if you go into CVS and you put your card in it and it spits out your coupons. Well, this is a short story dispenser. And it has buttons on there for 1, 3, or 5 minute Discord. And you press it and out pops a short story from all different authors, all different titles, all different subjects, in order to get people to read. They have it in their library. They also have it in City Hall. I brought this up to the county, seeing if they would put it in the vestibule of the county government building. I'm asking, I don't know if this would be under recreation or whatever, for a small amount of money. If we put it here in City Hall, people could come in, press whatever 1, 3, or 5 minute discourse they want to read to get people to read. I think that's a very good idea, and I would be willing to share the pictures of this if anybody is interested. Also, I noticed going by on Route 100, the racetrack at Seminole and 100 there, had signs for cigarette prices on the city property. Now, you can't have for sale signs, you can't have garage sale signs, but yet they are displaying all kinds of signs within city property about 5 feet off the road for Marlboros and every other brand of cigarettes. I don't know if they were there today. I did not go by, but they have been. And I'm just curious as to any FEMA money. Has the city received any from any of the hurricanes, and roughly how much are we still owed? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
John Netz, Palm Coast. I think this request is for Mr. Reichman. As I spoke at the last time the Cooper issue was raised, I encouraged the council and all the concerned residents to petition the judge to perhaps move the dog to a sanctuary. Could you provide, for the benefit of our residents, the contact information for the judge? Who is the judge? How do we best write to him? How do we best encourage him to, or her to do such a thing? And along with that request, it's been reported that other counties have done a similar thing. That is, instead of housing the dog in a humane society locally, they took the dog, or they shipped the dog, or they sent the dog to this Plant City Sanctuary. Could we find out, please, were they in violation of the state law? Were there some exceptions? How was that done in the other counties, if in fact it was done? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. No one, I'll close public comment. No, this is that public comment is over. As far as deeming the dog dangerous, I'm not sure how that process works, and frankly, it might be worthwhile for us to actually workshop this issue, to go through this whole process. This is my first time having to deal with such an issue on the council, and I just, if the council is okay with workshopping, actually understanding the deeming of a dangerous dog, how we contract that out, who determines that, what scale, I think that'd be helpful for us moving forward.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And as far as if other counties have done this, I think we've made it clear that, I don't know what counties they're referring to, but I'm sure that if they'd like to send us which counties they are, we can clarify, how they got around a state law. I'd like to understand that process a little bit of finding out how they got around that. And so I would request that they send the counties that they've identified to us in an email so we can do some due diligence.
That's fine, Mayor. The statute, as Councilmember Lyon indicated, says specifically that in the second bite situation, during the process of the appeal, which is what's happened, the dog be quarantined. And that's a term, that's a specific legal term. And so while I certainly am not aware of the circumstances that are being stated, it could be that these are dogs that are not in the same situation legally or factually as Cooper is in this. Cooper was already determined to be dangerous in Port Orange. The whole process changes. The whole consequences change when it's the second determination of the second determination that it's a dangerous dog. In that case, whatever discretion was there for the hearing officer the first time collapses.
I think we understand that. I think we just want to know which counties they're referring to so we can do some research. That's it.
It's fine.
So send the counties, and then we'll do our due diligence, and we'll certainly respond to that. And as far, just please hold on a moment. As far as the Supreme Court ruling, can you?
I'm familiar with that case. Okay. That was directed to a prior version of the ordinance. And so the legislature, after that case, came in and amended the ordinance to deal with the defects that were set forth by that court. So the version of the ordinance that case was directed has been replaced. And so the process that we have followed, that all counties, all local governments follow, is a version of the statute that is different than what was the subject of that case that was referenced by the young lady.
Thank you. I just need to go through the public comments, and then you can sort of address these. It's the rules and procedures, how we do this. So, okay, so and as far as stating who the judge is and the information, that's public.
I can provide that to the city public information officer, and that information can be distributed on our website in any other way that we can to get it out.
Okay. And now I will take it to the George's comments about the kiosks. I've not heard of that. If you want to share that. We just passed the budget, so there's no money this year, but it's certainly something worthwhile looking at next year. I love the moment of inspiring reading in the community. It means a lot. So maybe we can coordinate with the county or collaborate on a way to do that. So I appreciate you bringing that forth. As far as signs on city right-of-ways.
We'll take a look at that. No commercial signs on public right-of-way, so we will take a look at that.
So thank you. And the FEMA money.
I will have Helena come up and address where we are in FEMA reimbursement.
City Council. The $7 million that we have requested FEMA for reimbursement, we have received $1.2 million. That is just for Hurricane Matthew. $4 million for Irma remains outstanding. So we continue to work with FEMA, expedite as much as we can, but it's a slow process.
And if I could just add, there's all different stages of the reimbursement process. So we're at different stages with both the storms and the different projects. Of course, unfortunately, when events like the recent hurricane in the Carolinas happens, that unfortunately delays some of our review process, understandably so, but also frustratingly so. So we have staff dedicated to getting these reimbursements processed and in. We're responsive every time FEMA or the state of Florida request additional information. So we're going to keep after it, Mayor and Council, because obviously we don't want to replenish those disaster reserves for when the next disaster comes.
Okay. What comment did you want to make?
I have a couple in response to the public comment. First, Mr. Reichman, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but in Cooper's case, after the first bite, and he was determined dangerous, it would have been possible to move him into a shelter at that time, correct?
As long as the other requirements that are set forth in the statute to deal with a dangerous dog were met, that is correct. That discretion is not provided for after a second bite by a dangerous dog.
So we will look into those other counties, but I think what we're going to find is that these were one-bite incidents.
Yes, sir.
And then as to the kiosks, there was a discussion a while back about some kind of information kiosks being put up at our trailheads and our walking paths. And I think that would be an excellent addition to that if that's possible. I'd like to certainly learn more about that, but I think that would be a wonderful place for that, since we're already looking at what we can put there to provide more information and more amenities.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll now move to agenda item number 14, which is discussion by, which our city manager search process. I had reached out to SGR, the company that we have contracted with to search for our next city manager. He indicated a couple of things, and I want to state this. I mean, we're not starting this process over. We're not starting from nothing. We've gone through a very lengthy procurement process, starting with an RFP that this council helped draft. The language to find the search firm. We put out the RFP. We received proposals. So many months had gone into this process of selecting the search firm. So we are contracted with this search firm. The concern became of how do we begin this process of actually advertising for the next city manager? Not again contracting with a new search firm or hearing all about the process. So Doug from SGR indicated the timing is going to be important. He suggested when we're going out for a search for a new city manager, it probably makes more sense to have 5 seated council members that are going to be that city manager's boss, rather than just have 3 sitting up there. There would be some reluctance for applicants to apply without knowing, who is going to be seated and certainly what their priorities are going to be. But one of the things he did suggest, which I thought was a good idea, was for him to host a community meeting and session to ask for input from the public on some of the qualities they would like to see in a city manager, and also maybe different ways to do outreach to a certain segment to try to find a good match for a city manager. I think that would be helpful for our residents to participate in this, but I also think it allows candidates who are running, who do want to provide that input to that process. So when we do get ready to actually draft the marketing material and approve the marketing material that's going to be disseminated and published in different materials throughout the country for the search, that we have had the public that have provided the input during the process, but it also allows those that will be seated potentially to be also part of that process. So I think that would be fair, and I think it continues the process going. And so You know, I know some of the discussion and the questions were, you know, timing-wise, and so that was the input that I've received. And when he comes here to do the community meeting, he'd be happy to sit down with any other one of us. We also have the option of always calling him directly because we are contracting with him, so we can have one-on-one phone calls to understand the process even more. And he offered to do that as well. So that's my report back. I wanted to hear from Councilmember Clufus as well, who was absent last workshop during this discussion, but also to hear his input because he will be seated and be part of this decision process.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Bo, Mr. Manager, I did have a chance to catch up with Bo yesterday, and I've been thinking a lot since the previous meeting. So my opinion is that I'm completely on board with waiting until there's 5 seated members, and to me that makes a lot of sense because in the state of Florida, when you apply for a city manager role, it immediately becomes public. So there's no way for an existing city manager from a neighboring city or anywhere across the country to put their name in the hat without making everyone aware at the city that they'd be leaving. I honestly believe that the best city managers are probably employed at this point, and that it would be an unnecessary risk for the best talent to put their name in the hat right now if it meant that we had 2 additional or new council members that were elected that didn't align with the initiative that we as a council have set. So I'm in complete concurrence, and I think it's not only prudent but wise to wait until that we have 5 seated council members. And I have full faith in Bo in the interim, absolutely.
Council, any discussion or comments?
Yeah, obviously I'm the chief voice in the opposition here on this. And I'll point to the motion that was passed by this council 2 weeks ago that we as council engage SGR as a way of communicating this process starting immediately. We want to find the next city manager. It's going to move us forward in the direction we've identified. That was the motion that Your Honor presented to us. We voted to move forward immediately. I do see this as, you know, there's no question that applicants are going to be throwing in applications prior to November 20th. The process, as identified through the materials provided by SGR, spells out, as was mentioned at the workshop, a 15-week process. They will be conducting meetings with us, with anyone we want them to conduct meetings with, before they sit down and put out an announcement. I think that waiting to even talk to them, which was what was discussed at the workshop for, you know, until November 20th, just seemed an unnecessary delay, because again, when the announcement goes out, the sitting council will be the next sitting council, regardless of whether we start now or start in 4 weeks. So why not start now? And then I'll just say though that in their materials, they do talk about meeting with the city council members and members of the interested public. And so what you've mentioned today seems to me like a compromise middle ground that I could go along with, which is get them started, and if them starting means first doing public meetings, great. As long as the process isn't just on hold for 4 weeks, I'm good with that. So I would support the mayor's position here, that that SGR gets to work immediately. That doesn't have to be sitting down with me. I'm fine with that. In fact, they could even, you know, talk to the members who definitely will be here.
Well, you're a member of the public. And frankly, I mean, I did take both your comments into consideration, and I did think through it. And after speaking to Doug, I mean, I did think that was a moment where, again, we kept the process going. And I really liked having a community meeting with the public because they are part of this process. And then I want them to have the input as well. If you're okay with that decision, I think that continues to keep the momentum going. Again, it engages them, and we can contact them to advertise a community meeting, maybe at our community center in the next couple of weeks, if they can make it. It gives them enough time for the public to prepare. And then, we can have their feedback.
And if I could also just add on, I have received comments from members of the public about even, name drops of, this is who I think you should pick. And it's not necessarily what we've talked about looking for. So I do think it's very valuable to open this up to, and so that we're not, so the perception isn't there that we're deciding what's best for the city without listening. So yeah, I'm all for get them on the roll, and we can hold off on the city council if it makes sense for them to meet to the city and find out. Actually, they probably will learn more about the city by having a public meeting and talking to the community members than by talking to any of us.
Well, I think they'll learn a lot from everyone. Yeah. So, but Councilmember Cuff, did you have anything to add?
No, I was going to ask you what the proposed schedule was for the public meeting. And also, I seem to remember them also talking about other avenues of soliciting public input, and I don't see any reason to not get that going now. Obviously, the public input, I don't think, is going to change regardless of who the 5 people sitting up here are. But like some of the other council members, I mean, I haven't gotten any resumes slipped under my office door, but that's starting. So I think it would also help if there could be some sort of public explanation as to what the process will be, and don't throw your resume as a paper airplane through my window when I'm stopped at a light because I can't look at it. It has to go through the process, but obviously we do want to consider everybody who's interested, so that might be part of the public meeting format of what's going to be happening, and at what point do you shine up your resume and send it in.
Yeah. And since, we've been very clear on, we do not want staff driving this process. We want to be driving this process. So I would be happy to begin the conversation of setting up the meeting and having him come in and advertising it appropriately through Virginia, to get it out, or maybe through Cindy or different avenues for the media to understand and put it out there. Okay. And agenda item number 15 is discussion for the contract with interim city manager. I'm actually going to do this twofold. So first, I want to turn it over to Councilmember Lyon to speak a little bit about your discussion and approach as far as what you presented tonight. I want to turn it over to Mr. Falgout for his comments, and then I'm actually going to ask him, while we talk about the specifics of the contract, to not be part of this conversation. But I also want the public to open it up to the public as well, because we will be taking action on this item. So, Councilmember Lyon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I received some materials from the city attorney of similar contracts, looked in, did a little research on my own about interim city managers, and then I sat down with Mr. Falgout with the presentation that he had prepared for a contract, and simply went over this. As Mr. Reichman pointed out last time, it's not a unique or even indeed really unusual process to have a contract. But currently, Mr. Falgout does not have a written contract with the city, and he is taking on. He has agreed to accept the appointment 2 weeks ago, and he has taken on the extra responsibilities, and as is reasonable, he wants to know where that is guided, or how that is guided, what his responsibilities are, taking into consideration the comments from the city council at the last meeting about moving forward, not letting our projects hold off because we were waiting for a new city manager. It made sense to prepare a contract that would essentially lay out the duties and responsibilities of a city manager. The proposal that we have is that Mr. Falgout not be a placeholder to make sure that the city doesn't collapse in the interim, but actually continue to be an aggressive spokesman for the city, trying to get ahead of the many things that we are working on. So, that said, the contract is broken into fairly standard sections describing the situation we're in the whereas clauses. It's all in the agenda. I'm sure you've all had a look at it. The employment and duties are spelled out under the charter and the code of ordinances. This is similar to what any city manager would be responsible to do. The key elements to me are that, or the key elements that make this different from a city manager contract are that Mr. Falgout can return to an assistant city manager job if he, well, first of all, he understands this is intended to be temporary, and that a new city manager will be appointed at some point, and at such time, he can resume working as assistant city manager. He will no longer be under contract, so the contract terminates on appointment of new city manager. The contract can also terminate if Mr. Falgout decides to step down from that role, provided he gives us sufficient notice, 30 days notice in there, so that we can determine who would be an step in as a replacement for the interim city manager position. And then, of course, if we are not satisfied as a city council, we can return him to his position as city manager, as assistant city manager. I'm going to skip through the one that we're going to have to discuss more on, and just go over the basics of it. Standards would be providing for his professional development. I don't anticipate there will be a lot of that, but in the event that there is a city manager's conference and an important issue changes with cities, we want to be able to say, yeah, we can send him there to cover that, to get educated on that. The concerns for the city may be following in the indemnification and bonding, but these are standard forms, standard clauses in contracts. In the event that Mr. Falgout is doing his job and someone sues him, the city will pay for his defense, either through the city attorney, or if there's a conflict in there, then the city will provide legal counsel. That is if he is doing his job. If it's something outside of the scope of his work, obviously the city's not going to cover that. Similarly, indemnified and bonded if necessary. And then, of course, his benefits during the interim, he will continue to receive the same benefits he's receiving as has been receiving as the assistant city manager. He will, the time he works as a contracted employee will still be counted toward his time as a city employee as far as tenure benefits are concerned. So in that position, in that perspective, it's not really a change to the mechanics of what the background behind his job and his compensation as far as his benefits and his terms of employment are concerned. His benefits will not be reduced, and of course, general terms, and perhaps Mr. Reichman will step in on those, but the general provisions that this is, the contract would be retroactive as of September 18th. The contract would be binding and your benefits on heirs and personal representatives, if you'd like to have that explained. I'll leave that to Mr. Reichman. But then the meat of it really is Mr. Falgout is stepping up and agreeing to take on more responsibilities, and has asked that the city increase his compensation in a couple of ways. And no number has been submitted in the draft as far as his salary compensation. He's making roughly $110,000 right now. I'd have to check with the city clerk to find out exactly what it is, or his staff. But he's asking for an increase of fair compensation, and we'll discuss the dollar amount. He is asking that the city pay a vehicle allowance, and the city, as understanding, was paying a vehicle allowance to Mr. Landon. That is, again, a common thing around cities everywhere to pay either provide a vehicle or provide a vehicle allowance to the city manager. And then he's asking that the city pay his health insurance premiums for the time he's under contract.
Thank you for your effort. I really appreciate it. It's nice to have an attorney on the council. Vice Mayor Cox as well. Did you feel left out? I know. Mr. Falgout, if, we will give you time now to talk about your compensation, what you're requesting, and why you feel it's appropriate.
Sure. Mayor and council, I guess this is introduction to the real introduction to the city manager chair. You get to talk about your contract and compensation in a public forum. So thank you to Mr. Lyon for meeting and getting it done so quickly. I think it's important that we have a contract in place based on your direction of moving some of your priorities forward. So I want to just cover a couple things because in talking out in the community, you know, there's quite some interesting perceptions of what a city manager does and doesn't do and what an assistant city manager does and doesn't do. So first off, I've been with the city for about 11 years in multiple different departments, divisions, and really fell in love with this community and this organization. It's a very strong organization. So I thank you for the confidence in putting me in this position. You know, prior to city council action 2 weeks ago, there was two people sort of in charge of operating the city day to day and answering to council, and that was the city manager and the assistant city manager. As we sit today, there is one person, that's myself, doing both those duties and those jobs. And so in talking with, you know, my family, the time has been extended, the responsibility is great. And the challenge is, you know, ahead of us. And so I take that very serious, and at the same time, in talking to my family, when considering compensation, we both want to be fair to myself and my family, but also to the city council and to the city of Palm Coast. And so I'm just going to cover, you know, I think it's important to note the things that I'm not requesting in this agreement, things that aren't in this agreement. So, you know, in consideration for being able to be returned to the assistant city manager and help in the transition to the next city manager, I am not requesting any severance in consideration. So there's no severance provisions in this contract. Secondly, a lot of city manager contracts have executive level benefits. Additional retirement contributions, additional leave, life insurance policies. I'm not requesting any of those considerations from City Council this evening. Finally, to get to the things I am requesting, you know, we'll talk about salary. I will give this to you. I'm not going to be requesting what the former city manager earned or what the average salary for a city our size in the state of Florida is. So I'll relieve some pressure for you this evening. I am requesting a base salary of $140,000. I believe that's fair for the job and responsibilities of an organization of over 400 employees and 85,000 residents. And then I'm requesting only a $200 a month auto allowance, a minimal auto allowance considering what was previously approved and what's standard in city manager contracts. Mayor, that's my request. I'm happy to answer any questions before I leave. I think that's appropriate that you all have an opportunity to discuss and hear from the public on that request, but I do believe it's fair for this position and the responsibility that you've given me.
Council, any discussion on the specifics of the contract before we open it up to the public?
My one question would be, when you go back, and we have the new city manager in here, and you go back, does your pay go back to, you had already received $15,000 when you became vice city manager. So does it go back to before the $15,000? Does it go back to what you made before then?
It goes back to my current salary plus any cost of living adjustments or merit increases that are given to normal employees during that time. There's no increase or decrease from what would be available to all city employees.
Any other council discussion?
No, I appreciate Mr. Lyons taking the time to formulate something so clear, and I appreciate the details that Bo provided.
We'll open up to the public for comment on this agenda item. You have up to 3 minutes. Please state your name for the record, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Palm Coast, good evening again. I'm just curious as to what the last salary that Jim Landon was making when he left. And I did not hear one way or the other whether anything would prevent Bo from submitting his proposal for becoming permanent city manager.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker.
Personally, Jack Carroll, Palm Coast. Personally, I'd like to hear what you people have to say first, so that I can comment on what you're going to do, what you're going to say. But as far as I'm concerned, going out to look for a new manager, and if you find a new manager, if you find a new manager, right, he's going to have time to adjust, to learn the job. And it's usually going to take, what, 6 months, 8 months before he learns what's going on in the city, before he learns where the city is controlled, where the streets are. With Bo, he already knows all this. So I don't see why. Well, let me ask you one question. What is it going to cost to hire this company to find us a city manager? Because that money could be saved, as far as I'm concerned. Because we got, and that man here, he's been here for 11 years. He knows the job. He's been all over the different positions. So I don't know why any more discussion's got to be. Your discussion should be how much we're going to pay him and what else he gets that Jim Landon got. You know, I'm not saying you got to give him the same amount, but, you know, let him earn it. But I think you got the right man for the right job. So I think you stop looking and spending our money.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker. Close public comment. As far as Mr. Landon's salary, can someone, Helena, can you give me the amount of Jim Landon's salary precisely? Okay, did you want also talk, just, can you say about benefits just quickly?
The benefits, there was a 20% contribution to the 401A plan and 5% to the 457. We also included in compensation the health insurance benefits.
And the car allowance was $800 a month?
$276 per pay period.
What is the compensation match for, or the 401A and 557 for Mr. Falgout right now?
The same as other directors, a 13% 401A and a 2% match on 457 as long as the employee contributes the match.
And Bo will be able to apply for this position. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said about Jim Landon. $177,000. And Bo will be able to apply for the position. We are contracting with SGR for $28,000 a flat fee. For this contract, we have decided as a council we wanted to go out and do a national search to see what other candidates would come forward and the attributes that they are looking to bring to the city.
I just have one point of clarification. Mr. Landon's car allowance was $600 per month.
$600 per month?
So it was just over, because that was a 9-day.
$276 per pay period. For 26
Oh,
pay
per
periods.
pay period,
Okay.
Yes, every other week.
Thank you.
Bo was asking for what?
200.
Any other comments or questions, council?
Sure. I'm sorry, I got distracted there from the, oh, Bo knows the job, that was the comment. Bo knows the city, but my understanding is we may not be looking for exactly the same job that the city manager's been doing for the last decade. We're looking for a city manager to bring the city to a different, to a new position, to a new, to move it forward in a way that it hasn't been before, and that's not exactly the same job. Bo can apply, and honestly, running, if this process takes 4 months and he's in city, he's going to know better than anyone else what's necessary for that. And if he believes he has the skills, then we're all for him putting into it. Yeah, he knows the city, he knows the job as it's been done, and if he's able to take on the job as it's envisioned, more power to him. As far as the compensation, the 140, I think is what he said, you know, part of me wants to say, well, you know, he was hired to do the transition, but if I'm being honest, no one foresaw the transition being a many-month process. At the time he was promoted to assistant city manager, there was an expectation that Mr. Landon would give us a retirement date, we would have a date planned, we'd start the search, and we'd have somebody lined up, and Bo would be helping to bring in the new person, so there might be a short time where he was there by himself, but not a many-month period. So I think that I have absolutely no problem with the car vehicle as he's requested. $200 a month, I think, is fine. I mean, that's certainly less than you would spend on a lease of an ordinary sedan right now.
Do you think that $200 is per pay period or per month?
He said month.
I think he said month. He did say month? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
You know, it's a per month in the draft contract, it's blank, so. I think he would do it for less than the 140. Is it fair to ask him to do it for less than the 140?
I don't, because we represent the residents that are gonna pay it.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think it's fair when someone has two roles that they're taking on and finding a new technology director, and we're in a transitionary state. He's taking on two roles. We will not have an assistant city manager. I am fine with the compensation he's asking. He's asking for less than what Jim Landon was making, no severance pay, and he's asking for not the other compensation that was attached to it, so.
I just want to add one more thing, is just to think about, is that prior to dismissing Mr. Landon, we were paying two people a total of $287,000 to do a job we're asking Bo to do now.
Yeah.
I think this demonstrates the difficulty of carrying out this process in compliance with the Sunshine Law. I personally think Bo underbid himself. I think if the council is willing to agree to his request for a salary of $140,000 as opposed to what he's making now, effectively, if our search goes according to plan, he will make $200 in car allowance and about $15,000 of his annual compensation in addition to what he would have been paid anyway. And he'll earn every dime of that and a whole lot more if he does the job that I think he's capable of doing and that so far I have seen him doing. So I have no problem with that. I would have been shocked if he had asked for what Jim Landon was making, but I didn't anticipate that, and I think I think his proposal shows that he really wants the job, and I think he he's entitled to what he's asking for as long as he's able to keep us moving forward on the different projects that he's going to have to be in charge of until the, I always hate the term permanent city manager, but until the non-interim city manager is found and hired. And if that's Bo, I think we'll know it at that time, and he has the opportunity to demonstrate to us that he's the right person for the job. But in the meantime, I know there are people that will criticize me for saying $140,000 a year is cheap, but in terms of what he's already entitled to as an employee, and in terms of what he's going to be doing and what that will actually net him in exchange for the time away from his family with a new Falgout on the way and everything else, I think it's more than fair.
Thank you. Any other council comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
What would our motion be?
Madam Mayor, would you like me to bring Mr. Falgout back for your motion?
We should make them sweat it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
It's up to you.
That's fine. We can bring him back. The motion would be to approve the contract with including the compensation that Bo has requested this evening.
And
May I make a motion? Do you
Yep.
have any additional comment? I would like to make that motion that Bo receive the salary increase and the additional stipulations that he has asked for the $140,000 a year salary while he remains our interim city manager, and he can have all the clauses that are existing in the contract and the car allowance of $200 per month.
Is there a second?
second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to discussion by City Council of matters not on the agenda. I'm going to switch it up because that was afterwards. Vice Mayor Cuff?
I have nothing further after our.
Okay. Councilmember Lyon?
Yeah, I'll just throw something out for thought for coming up meetings is people have been asking me about what can we do to improve the community CLAT program that we set out there, that we agreed to be involved with and become a TNR community 2 years ago. I'd like that we consider an ordinance to clarify what is the definition of an owned animal, because there is some ambiguity as to how far people can go, what they can do to help out in the stray cat situation without creating a problem for their neighbors. And I think part of that is that it's not well defined.
Would you like to workshop it?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's workshop that. Okay. Councilmember?
Yep, so the one time that Mr. Carr is in here, I was thinking about how he continuously talks about Florida Park Drive, and then I was thinking about our technology initiatives, and I was thinking that perhaps if the rest of the council agreed that we could possibly workshop an issue about putting air quality monitors via IoT sensors on Florida Park Drive, leveraging our own fiber, and hopefully Mr. Falgu will work with FPL so that we can mount those IoT sensors to their equipment, and we would kill two birds with one stone by being on the forefront of technology initiatives, but also trying to add in data to the troubles that we experience on Florida Park Drive just to validate the data. I think that'd be a better idea than the traffic study that has been thrown around, and I think it would be a more effective test for the city to show its real technology capabilities.
Well, I don't know what that is, but actually, I like the fact that you brought it forward, and I would love for staff to come back with some more details surrounding, maybe, Councilmember Clufish, you can help draft some of the language more specifically of what it would take, and maybe do a little bit of research to bring that forth with staff. That would be helpful.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah,
Okay.
That's all I have.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mine was just going to be the TNR workshop, so.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder.
And I have nothing. A discussion by city attorney of matters not on the agenda.
Nothing, Madam Mayor.
Okay, you're done for the night? Okay. Discussion by city manager of matters not on the agenda.
First, council, thank you for the consideration. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the challenge, and let's get to work. So, starting right away, next week, your normal city council workshop normally starts at 9. We're going to get started a little earlier at 8 a.m. at Public Works with a facility tour, since that'll be part of your discussion later in that day. I would encourage any members of the public and media to also attend, because while the Public Works facility isn't really visible for most on US 1 there behind the tree line, basically, Public Works serves every department and every function of the city, and so it's a pretty important facility, and I think it's valuable for our discussion later at workshop in regards to funding options for that facility, that the public and the media and, of course, City Council, which I know you've probably have all been to the facility to get that tour. So that'll start at 8 a.m. Sharp. Of course, we know we'll probably start the tour at 8:15 just because media may be late to show up. So we want to encourage people to attend that. The other thing I have, yes.
coming back here for the workshop.
Correct. They don't have very nice facilities to have your meeting. So we'll be back here at 9 a.m. or shortly thereafter to begin our workshop. Appreciate if you could all make it. We'll notice it and do all the proper things there. We have a request from the Flagler County Sheriff's Office to support a justice grant, and so we will prepare that for the mayor's signature. It's not something we can necessarily apply for. In the past, we provide that layer of support, so I'm just letting you all know that. And then finally, as far as TNR and looking at our ordinance, city staff and the city attorney's office have been drafting an ordinance related to animal control, related to tethering, and those type of items you may have remembered discussing. So before we bring it back for workshop, we're going to take a look at some options, some other examples of TNR, and if you have any that's been circulated to you, we'd love to take a look at that to give council options as you consider that. And then Mr. Clufus, we are waiting for the date for FP&L to come to talk about a host of issues, including whether we can attach things to their light poles. So I'm going to add that to that item. I think that'd be an appropriate place to raise it with FP&L, and then of course we'll follow up with the sensors. So that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, the one time show up, right? I've got them to show us, you know what we should do?